Hello there, lovely. Good afternoon, and welcome to the Lunchtime Cafe right here on Camnet TV. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Joe Smarter, and of course, we have nothing but the best for you in current affairs this particular afternoon. And my guest this afternoon, it being a Wednesday, she is a lady, and obviously, she is joining us via Zoom. We will be having this interview virtually with her. Her name is Charlotte Nais, and she is a civil rights activist. Charlotte, good afternoon and welcome.
Good afternoon, Samantha, and good afternoon, Camnet. Thank you very much. Good afternoon, Zambia.
Okay, good to have you here. How's Canada this afternoon?
Oslo. Oslo is cloudy.
Okay.
We are hoping to have some of the sun that you guys have in Zambia, so we can exchange if it's possible. Kindly come and get some snow, so we can get a little bit of some heat.
Okay.
We're tired of taking vitamin D, so we need some sun.
Okay, fantastic. Now, beginning on a lighter note, let's go to what took place on Friday. I am privy to the fact that you were following the presidential address by the Republican president, Mr. Hakainde Hichilema, where he addressed Parliament and highlighted a number of issues. Charlotte, I would like to find out from you, what was your takeaways from that particular presidential address to Parliament?
Thank you very much, Mr. Samata. There was a number of issues that that were highlighted, but looking at where I am coming from as governance, activist, there are some issues that were really important. And then to some extent, I also felt like well taken care of as a parent. I felt a sense of belonging because the president was raising an alarm, especially when it comes to bad vices that we have seen that has been an increase for the youths. But then he also highlighted some economic challenges, and that once we adjust, they would also help to better Zambia. So just to highlight a few things, I think when it comes to morality and ethics, that area he touched on very well. And to me, it felt like he was informed. He has the right people that are on the ground, and that he doesn't take this thing as for granted. So he knows that the behavior of these youths has a very serious implication on the country as well. But then it can end up becoming a public health problem. So on morality and ethics, I felt like he was there and he really touched, civil society, but then also raising an awareness to fellow Zambians.
Okay. Now, on the aspect of him extending an olive branch to opposition political parties, you are a governance activist, and obviously we're discussing governance and civil rights. But let's zero in on governance. He extended an olive branch to the opposition political parties, and we haven't heard their response up to now. But let me get it from you. How did you receive that invitation that the president made to other opposition political party members and leaders?
Thank you very much. I can go as far back as 2 weeks ago when he addressed the global, the drought challenge in Zambia and how Zambia has been hit. We remember very well, I listened to that address as well, where he called upon everybody involved and those that have the best interest of Zambia to come together and work, especially the drought, that it should not be used as a political tool. However, we should look at it as a challenge for the country and how best we can work together. I think there are times when we can politicize in Zambia, and there are times when it calls for action. And when we don't see that response, as long as it hasn't come out in the media, then we want to assume that they have not responded. And it's unfortunate when we don't see them doing that, because the only way we can tell that they have actually responded is that, they get an opportunity to appear on Camnet TV, for example, where they'll be talking about that, acknowledging that we heard the president had, extended a hand, and we are equally responding. We see that there's a need for us to, use our platforms, use our energies, use our voices to best, to the best interest of Zambia. And I think that shows patriotism, but then at the same time, the political field, the Zambia that politicians, oppositions are intending or have aspirations to lead or to govern over, will also have some belief in them to say, actually, these people, they do care, because I don't believe somebody will only be able to talk about drought only when they get into power. They need to show that patriotism. They need to show that leadership, that they actually acknowledge the problems that Zambia is facing. And if they can actually work on them whilst in opposition, I think that gives them an aim. So it's no time to politicize when it comes to serious issues like the drought at the moment, and especially some of the issues that we don't see room to start politicizing. They can choose not to go and work necessarily with the president very close, but let them do it in their space. I think that too is also going to respond to the Zambians.
Okay. Now, Charlotte, let's move on. There has been a concern from some sections of society, and I keep asking this question. What reports are you getting, or what are you reading in the media or watching in the media when it comes to allegations that have been made by some sections of society suggesting that Zambia is slowly regressing into what they are calling shrinking democratic space? Let me get it from you.
I am very concerned. I am concerned about my country. We have seen other states, sliding. I attended not too long ago. The NORAD here had organized a conference, and one of the topics that they were looking at is the shrinking, or at least the rising of authoritarian regimes. And that is one of the areas that also I worry about my country, and I hope not that Zambia will end up in that. We can try by all means to avoid that. What are the causes? I think the most important is I try to be as objective as possible to see which are my sources, informers, when we are trying to look at this as an activist and even as an NGO, because you don't believe everything that we see on social media, but I try to be selective and also be updated to say, maybe let me just tune in during news time. At least we know that those are not just speculations, but then they have done their works to carry a thorough story and authentic. So there have been some issues here and there that one would say, would start thinking maybe it could lead to that, the democratic space. We have heard opposition parties talking about them not having public rallies. Not too long ago, we heard the president. The president has been very clear. One, the president, when it comes to arresting, has been very clear on the home affairs. Even in his last address, he talked about do not arrest before you do your investigations. And I think that is a correct thing. And this statement, he has repeatedly talked about it. And there's a reason why I would think a man of his status would be talking about this thing. So could that be the reason why we feel that there's that shrinking democratic space? And these arrests are mostly opposition leaders. We don't hear about a mere Zambian making so much noise, families going, talking, complaining about this thing, but we're only hearing it through the politicians, the opposition especially. So it could be some of the triggers. Not too long ago, we saw something that happened in Kabwe, where a sitting chaired by the mayor, where there was an interruption. So there are those small things that we would think one would start believing to say, could those be the ones? So if I were in government, I think the best thing to do is that maybe they should also listen. It's very important because by the end of the day, this is about Zambia. And like I mentioned, the conference was talking about authoritarian regimes, so it was not particular one person. So as Zambia itself, Zambia, we are looked upon as peaceful. And what makes peace is all of us. So everything we do will always shine upon us and upon the people who see us outside. So the little things that maybe are also creating to that. But it's also encouraging when you hear the leader himself talking and cautioning the home affairs in what areas that they should do. So we can only hope that he has the right people that are able to inform him exactly what is on the ground, because we have seen that it happened in the previous regime where the former president majority felt he was not really well informed, and we saw that response in the election, how people responded, that people wanted change, and they wanted change from all that unruly behavior. So I hope that the president is well informed, and that it does not escalate to a position where it's too late for him to clean up.
Okay. Now let's go to something that has been a topical issue. Now this has to do with a clergyman and an organization known as OSIDA. Now there has been conflicting statements coming from members of OSIDA, and we haven't heard from the bishop, and in this regard, I'm talking about Archbishop Teleso Mpundu. We haven't heard from him after he allegedly issued or sent a letter to the United States Embassy calling on sanctions on Zambia, first of all, and travel restrictions and bans on senior government officials, including the #1 citizen, the President of the Republic, the Vice President, the Attorney General, and other senior government officials. Now, you are privy to this particular topical issue, Charlotte. Let me get it from you. What is your comment regarding this particular matter?
Thank you very much. Again, we'll go back to who are we talking about? We're talking about Zambia. Allow me to state that I like how you put it, allegedly, because we haven't yet confirmed whether it was indeed Bampundu that wrote that letter. But again, knowing the man that he is, I would say it's rather getting too late for him to confirm whether it was actually him behind the letter. I think he needed to come out by now. It's almost a week now since that letter came out public. So one would be wondering what is really happening behind the scenes, that he hasn't come out to confirm or just really rebuke the letter, whether it's true. The letter has some content which I would like to focus on as a governance activist, but then also as a citizen of Zambia. One, each country has a sovereign, and what makes a sovereign? We need to look after Zambia. We need to be very, very careful. One of the reasons why Zambia is always running to the big mamas and the big daddies, I think it's because we are very dependent on other countries for our economic welfare. The moment Zambia becomes dependent on itself, I think you will see that we will be the big boys and we will be able to call our own shots. We cannot let another country to come and meddle in Zambia's internal affairs. We as Zambians, we understand each other. I'm married to a Norwegian man. There are certain things that I would talk about to my own people that he would hardly understand what it is. So it would take some time to let another person sit in our shoes and try to understand, to reason with us. So I don't think seeking the American embassy, I don't think that is the way to go. However, the content of the letter, there's a lot to think about. I think that is where we need to use our energy, the content. Are they truthful? Are they not? Are there some things we need to pick up from here and there? And like I earlier stated, are there things that the president is not aware of that are happening, right? Because there are so many people that are involved in that letter, and all these are leaders of very senior high government institutions. So I think it's very, very important how these institutions are being represented and how they are being viewed in the public eye. I think that is what we need to focus on. So we can clearly state and agree that going to the American embassy is not a solution. Not too long ago, we saw America, they went to attack the Capitol Hill. They never requested Europe. They never requested, nobody was there to talk about their own issues. So we can have our internal wrangles, but then let's not rush, because there's no other better person to understand than us ourselves, the Zambians.
Okay. Now, still on this very matter,
and then just to add on, many people, that letter says it's selective sanctions. But what we don't see is the consequences that it would have on you and I, the end users, the ordinary Zambians. So much as it would be targeted on the president, let's agree that those sanctions, in one way or another, nobody would want to deal with a country that its president is sanctioned. That is the number one. There will be no country that would like to associate itself with Zambia once our president has been sanctioned, regardless of how bad he is. So when we start calling, let's look seriously on the implications it has. So if its head, the speaker, the who and who have been sanctioned, it's not just them and their families, that Zambia will be put on the spotlight. So it's very, very important. Sorry, okay. I had to catch you on that one.
Okay. Now, still on this particular matter, Charlotte, yesterday in the broadsheet, an indigenous newspaper, the Zambia Daily Mail, there was a story that was carried out that it has emerged that there are two individuals that are alleged to have authored this particular letter that was sent to the U.S. Embassy. And I'm sure you are familiar with that particular story again. But let me find out, does this then exonerate the clergyman, Archbishop Tereso Mpundu, now that it has emerged that one of the authors of that particular letter is a land historian based in South Africa and a civil activist based right here in Zambia and part of OSIDA as an organization?
Again, I would say that those are misplaced priorities. The letter has been produced. It has content, and content is what we should focus on, and not who wrote the letter by now. Mpundu should come out and, refute if that is not his name on that letter. It's a very, very strong letter that should be taken very seriously. And if it's not him, let him say it. However, what is the content of that letter? That is what should keep us very busy. That is what, those are the contents that is going to, and because of some of the contents in that letter, if the police feel that that letter is wrong, they should, they should bring it down. Or if there's another, maybe civil society where people should sit down, let's learn to dialogue. Throwing it out is not going to help Zambia. If those are real situation problems, we did see, by the way, I saw that problems were highlighted, why the calling of sanctions, right? However, I would also have loved to see that on such a date, we called upon the Speaker of the National Assembly. On that date, we wanted to date her, and we were not given that, platform because we wanted to highlight 1 or 2, 3 things, right? That would also show us that the people behind that letter mean well. So it's not just critique.
Okay.
They have made steps, and those steps were followed in this way. On such a date, we made a date to see the president. We wanted to discuss this and that issue, or we discussed this, and this is the response. Let the people of Zambia, you see, what we are hearing is that Zambia, where can we go for dialogue? The church. We need to find a place where we can find refuge. Are these the people? Are these the right people where people can actually dialogue? Then every time we just hear emotions going out in the media, but then we are not able to dialogue. How are we going to be able to move forward at Zambia? And how are we ever going to talk about serious problems? So let them start by dialogue. If they are denied, then one would say, okay, they tried, and then they were not given audience. That is why maybe they are going now to the media, at least.
Okay. Now let me bring in the United Kwacha Alliance. Now I am bringing in the United Kwacha Alliance because they called on the president to address the contents of that letter as he made his way to Parliament to address the nation, the National Assembly, as well as the media. Now, UKA calling for the president to address the contents of that particular letter in Parliament. How did that sit with you? How did you view that coming from the opposition themselves, calling for the president to address the contents of that particular letter in Parliament, and the president never did that. So how do you look at that? Should he have, should the president, was he supposed to address the contents of that letter in Parliament, and now that he didn't address that particular letter in Parliament, how do you look at that particular development?
It's very difficult for me to comment on that. I'm hearing the question, or at least that UKA has. I have seen the organization coming together. However, one would want to look at the authentic of that letter.
Okay.
One, we have seen that OSIDA itself is split, because not too long ago, or a day later after the letter was released or came to public, we saw Wambula, who is also a trustee of OSIDA, who was trashing that letter. Now, if Wambula, he's part of OSIDA, trashed the letter, how does it even become a relevant document that the president should address? Right? Those are some of the things that we need to look at. Okay. And then we also haven't gotten a word from Wampundu himself. And then that letter was not addressed to the president. So the president can also just say, the letter was not addressed to me. I am one of the culprits that has been, he's going to get criticism. And yes, okay, the opposition also, but then they're also going to be critiqued to say, what is your interest, right? We need to find a platform where we can show that we are trying both sides, and we are not just looking at penalizing or policing each other. The opposition must be heard, but is there a platform where they can be heard? Okay. To start with. Why don't we get, for example, here, we get debates, not just during elections. In some countries, developed countries, we do get debates where opposition, the president, they appear on national television and they talk about some of these issues. So that issue that you are raising as Camnet TV, and I'm sure other media houses have seen that this is a hot topic, you should be allowed to host some of these politicians where they can come together or maybe just discuss this. This is very, very important. It's of national interest. So we can go by, one of the questions, two of the questions, invite maybe some of these leaders that are in question, if they're able to even speak publicly like that. And I think it's very important that we find a place where we can actually dialogue, because if it's just going to be going one way, and that time, by the way, the president did not take questions. It was a parliament address. It's different if he's talking at State House where journalists are even allowed to ask questions. This time around, there was no room for asking questions. So he was merely going to talk about something that is in the public eye, and then they expected him to talk about it. So I believe the letter has got content which needs serious attention. However, how we do it also really matters. And who wrote the letter at the moment? The speculations. Shushua, is it Shushua? He's a very known public speaker, and Changala as well is also a known public speaker. So I don't think those guys would really run away to come and say, hello, we are the ones that are behind this letter. But then, saying I'm the one, is that what is going to cause us to start addressing those issues? What will it take? Okay.
Now let's move on. The fight against corruption under the governing UPND. Now there have been concerns that since the UPND came into power, they have continued to point an accusing finger on their predecessors. However, on the flip side, we are not seeing any convincing convictions coming from the judiciary or the courts of law regarding those that have been accused of having stolen, having raped the constitution of this particular country. We are not seeing any convictions, Charlotte. Is the fight against corruption in the UPND government vindictive, retribution? How can we term it, and how can we say that the UPND is committed to fighting corruption?
They have started. There is more to be done. There are some issues that are raising eyebrows. We see the fight against corruption become very intensified the moment we change government. See, those that served in the previous government, and of course the former head of state has been mentioned here and there. Again, I will have to say, living abroad, it's not very nice to hear my country being talked about being corrupt, because the previous government meant a lot on the Zambian map. So when we are known as corrupt people, it's a dent on our image. So how we talk about this as well is very important. I think we need to take a step back to announce or pronounce these allegations until, like the president has said, let somebody be found guilty. Because yes, people will be asking, so not too long ago, was it yesterday, we saw the former foreign affairs minister being apologized to by the Chinese nation, who actually caused him to resign from his position. He was doing a fantastic job. I think he was a very good young guy for that job, and he served Zambia, according to the picture that we saw, was quite, remarkable. But now, we see that they are apologizing, and one would wonder, why are they that the SEC were, questioning him. There had been a search we saw at his house, that there was a question by the SEC. Nothing has come out of it yet, and if the SEC was involved as well. I think profiles, and then we also try to read in the media as well. Even some of the current supporters of the current government, they actually accuse one another of being corrupt. So we see that, one, the president, I think, needs to address that. And like there's been a calling already that if the apologizing of the Chinese national towards the former foreign affairs will lead to the president reinstating the former foreign affairs minister, that I think will also be questionable. So I think it's very a question of having been very corrupt, asking them to return those goods. I don't think that is a solution. I don't think that is the way to go to ask. I mean, let them be punished. They broke the law, and let them serve it. That is as simple as that. And then the president has continuously reminded the institution, Home Affairs, the SEC, that they should be swift in handling their issues. Be swift. It should not be dragging on. I mean, they are 1.5 years gone, and we haven't seen significant issues that has come out in the fight against corruption. So that already in itself, especially when the president was so clear about fighting corruption, I think he should focus on some of those. What does he want to be remembered for? Imagine if President Hakainde Hichilema was able to be successful in the fight of corruption. I think this would be a milestone for him. Imagine coming in and then say, I'm going to fight corruption, and he actually does fight corruption. And one of the things that I'm rooting for him, he should not be afraid of not being voted in because he's trying those people that he's working with. You know, when he does right for Zambia, by the end of the day, it's Zambia that matters to him, not those that voted for him. Let him do right for Zambians. The Zambians will be very happy. I mean, look at how people are struggling. People are struggling, they need something, and we need that type of leadership that stands by the word. We need to see the actions. We just don't want, pronouncing, we are doing this, there's been a lot of money going in, bail out, but then how much is actually coming back to the Zambian people? That is what is the most important thing. And by so doing, when we see that majority are going scot-free, or maybe whether it's just an accusation, I don't know what is happening with the current institutions, because we hear also that the institutions are not working very, very well. So if there can be some really strict measures to fight corruption, we are able to see the reactions, some outcomes that are, really desirable for Zambia, whether it's true or not. But at least if somebody has been accused, no, Mr. Smart, no, Charlotte was in this, let them see us to say we are proven guilty or not guilty. I think that would actually put some boost in the Zambian people and believe that there's a serious fight against corruption.
Okay. Now, Charlotte, still on the fight against corruption, the Anti-Corruption Commission, ACC board chairperson, Council Musa Mwenye, has been quoted in one of the daily tabloids, the News Diggers, and of course, over a screaming headline. It runs with a screaming headline, which says, Musa condemns asset recovery. You cannot fight corruption by asking thieves to surrender what they stole. Now, that's the headline there, Charlotte. And this particular story reads in brief: Anti-Corruption Commission ACC board chairperson Musa Mwenye says asset recovery alone is not enough in fighting corruption, arguing that it's unjust to jail someone for stealing a goat, yet letting those that steal millions of dollars scot-free. Your comment, Charlotte?
That is very simple for any child to understand. It's very, very clear. But where are those millions? That is another question. Where are those millions? If we know where those millions are, just go and arrest them. Just go. It's as simple as that. Just go and arrest them.
Are we playing to the gallery, Charlotte? Are we playing to the gallery when it comes to the fight against corruption?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I'm able to hear you. Are we playing to the gallery as a nation? The president makes this pronouncement, fighting corruption, yesterday corruption, current corruption, and future corruption. The Anti-Corruption Commission board chairperson talks about asset recovery not being enough. You can't just tell thieves to surrender the millions that they have stolen, but also they need to go to jail. Are these pronouncements meant, or are they, can we call them window dressing, just to comfort the Zambian people?
That is how they appear at the moment. Because why would the president, most of the addresses that he has had, at least the chance to talk to the media, when he's asked about the corruption question, he always refers to that. And he is also on record being, calling for quick, they shouldn't take so long, they shouldn't drag these cases. Let them conclude as quickly as possible. I mean, what is causing the anti-corruption, the police, all these officers involved, what is causing them so much? Are they just assuming these guys have stolen when they haven't? If indeed they have, why aren't they brought to book? What will it take? And then how do we confidence? Sometimes we start to question, why don't our people believe in us? These are some of the reasons why they lose confidence in us, because, they think we just take them for granted. There's been a lot of pronouncements in the media where we hear, they keep on going to court, but nothing is really coming out of it. And these cases have been spoken about in the public eye, that they keep on appearing before court because they are suspected to have been, process of crime, somebody. I think we saw the former police chief who was jailed recently. I think she's one of the big shots from the previous government that has been in. But even then, the money involved was very, very little money that we can talk about.
Can we then conclude that maybe those that have been perceived to have been corrupt, those that are accusing fingers which are pointing in their direction, are now in bed with those in the current administration, in the UPND? Hence, we are not seeing any meaningful convictions coming from our courts, or those that were accused of having looted the resources of this country not being arrested or not being taken to court. Can we then conclude, Charlotte, that maybe they are in bed with some officials from the UPND, or outrightly, maybe they have gone to bed with the UPND as an administration?
I'll challenge you on that one. You being a journalist, why don't you take up that mantle?
Okay.
Do those jobs. We have seen some of the cases, high-profile cases that have been unleashed by journalists We can't settle whether they're going back to going to bed with the previous regime and the current working together. It's very unfortunate because there have been serious pronouncements regarding corruption. And for us to conclude on that one and just put it to bed like that, I don't think it's fair on the Zambian people. So I definitely hope that the journalists can take up the job, try to resurface, try to work so hard, try to work with some whistleblowers who can give you real facts. Unfortunately, again, I hope you also don't put your jobs on the line, that you risk your job by being able. But I think you can do it as Camnet TV. People will be rooting for you if you are able to just find some of these corrupt leaders and just bring the evidence. Be the first ones to go out there. I think it will be very, very good. And Zambia will be making strides in that line. If we are able, one, to protect the journalists, two, to protect the whistleblowers, and indeed to find those leaders that are culprits, that are really corrupt, because we can't go on like this. I mean, Zambia is too rich. It's too rich to just have a few individuals. And the worst part of it all? We claim to have so many big fish with a lot of money. But when we need the help, how many people have even offered to give 100 bags of millet to say these are the rich people that we have? Those are the things that we should be seeing, because that is what we see in other countries. Those that are genuinely wealthy, they will call to say, on such a day, can the community come through? We'll be giving out some food, relief food. We see now that countries are giving relief food. Where is that money coming from? Of course, some countries, but there are some wealthy people that are, so if they are genuinely wealthy, let them respond to that. Let them respond. Okay. Or at least let them help us to pay the debt. Zambia is in too much debt. And if all this money we talk about, the real Zambians that really care for Zambia, they could tell Mr. President, Ninkwata $1 billion. How about that?
Okay. Now, you brought in the aspect of Milimil, and this obviously comes or zeroes down or boils down to the issue of the high cost of living. Now, Charlotte, according to the world definition of poverty or hunger, poverty obviously is persistent hunger, but we have Zambians that are living on less than $1 a day, less than $2 a day. Now, obviously, they are in poverty, we can conclude. The issue of the high cost of living, Charlotte, this has been a thorny issue in most of the majority Zambians. Yes, they do admit there is the introduction of free education. We are seeing that our young men and women are getting recruited in the defense forces, teacher recruitment. We are also seeing health workers getting employed as well. This in itself is commendable when it comes to what stakeholders are saying. It is commendable on the New Dawn administration. However, there is another concern: the high cost of living. Have you seen any strides being taken or measures being put in place to make sure that the cost of living is reduced? Charlotte?
The cost of minimum should be worked on. Okay. We must agree, you and I will agree that Zambia is very limited on food. Having lived here, we see that some of my African friends, they have a variety of foods that we actually grow in Zambia, except that we don't consider them as staple food, right? Not too long ago, former Lusaka province, Bowman Lusambo, had advised the people to be eating kandolo. It was in a bad taste because the time was not ripe to be talking about kandolo, of course. But we see that other countries, they eat cassava, they eat kandolo, they eat palm, they eat all sorts of foods that we grow. And, they really don't go, focused on the shima that we eat. But it's very, very sensitive, one would say, at the moment to start talking about those alternatives now when we actually are in need. So I think the fastest move the government needs, which we have seen, they have introduced the ZNS mealie meal, which is, not too expensive compared to the other, but then I'm not too sure whether it's easily accessible by majority Zambians. So I think it would be very, very important that the government do something on the mealie meal itself, because that is our crop, that is our staple, whether we like it or not. When we have stabilized, I think slowly as they start working on policies, I think it's important that we also start including some of these foods that we don't see them foreign. Our Zambian men, if we feed you guys with the rice, you say, akanika snack food, right? So that mindset needs to change as well. So if you're considering snack, imagine you come home, Mr. Sumata, you're all tired, and then your wife prepares this lovely meal. When there's no shima, you don't consider that a meal, right? So it has to start gradual until we get to accept it that, oh, actually, we need to grow. We need to have a diverse food in Zambia. But at the moment, I think the mealie meal needs to be worked on. And we hear everybody's talking about mealie meal. That Pamela of 10 Kacha is not sustainable at all. So the crop, and we also look at fertilizer. Now, we can talk about the drought. So because of the bad rainfall in this season, getting to 2024, we will see that the price of mealie meal will be very, very high. What are we doing about it? So I think it's very important now that those officers involved should work together in the years to come, but we are very, very certain that the maize is going to be very expensive, the mealie meal will be very expensive, so the government must put measures to drop the price, not more than $2.50 a bag. It would really, really help a lot of majority Zambians, considering that we are not having alternative foods. Yes, people will eat alternative food, but our staple food is mealie meal, and that is very key. So if they can bring down, we a lot of queues in most parts of the country queuing up to buy a bag of mealie meal. And then also, it's not looking very good picture when too long ago we saw that there was some exports, and then suddenly now Zambians are going to queue up for the same mealie meal.
Okay. Now, Charlotte, let's come to the issue, like the way we are discussing right now, the issue of regulating podcasts. Now, it has been rumored, or we have confirmed reports, actually, not rumors, but confirmed reports are suggesting that podcasts will be regulated. If you'd like to go live, for instance, on your Facebook page, you need to have a license. You need to be regulated, for instance. Now, how do you make of this particular development or suggestion coming from the Ministry of Information and Media through the Independent Broadcasting Authority?
The response to that will be, what is our problem?
Okay.
Our problem should be able to respond to the answer. So what is prompting the Ministry of Information to go that route? If it's to gag nationals, I want to believe that we saw not too long ago, some guy was jailed for hate speech. To begin with, Zambia must define what hate speech is all about. Okay. What is hate speech? In the past, Mr. Mata, you agree with me that we have heard the politicians, they have a large following on record, having abused their platforms to disseminate very bad language that has been hurtful to majority Zambians. So a description of what hate speech is all about and what crime follows that hate speech should be well, defined before anybody is caught on the wrong side.
So, Charlotte, just there.
Yep.
Let me find out from you. A gentleman by the name of, is it Chama, the one that has been convicted of hate speech, and he has been sentenced to 1 year with hard labor. He is an ordinary Zambian. No excuse for hate speech. No excuse for any remarks made against an individual or a group of individuals in this country. No excuse for that. However, we saw politicians prior to the 2021 general elections going on radio stations, going on TV stations, issuing unpalatables towards individuals, towards certain groupings of people. And these politicians, until today, they are still roaming the streets of Lusaka, the streets of Zambia freely. Are politicians insulated to prosecution? For instance, an ordinary citizen has been convicted and sentenced to 1 year imprisonment with hard labor. Politicians that were peddling hate speech, tribal remarks, are still roaming the streets of Zambia freely. Are politicians exceptional then? Should we conclude that? Charlotte?
We shouldn't conclude it, and we should not condone it. And that is also creating a lot of problems. You see, these are the things that we saw one of the things that we saw in the letter that was done by Osida. You know, the selective justice on issues, especially when we see that the police become very active. There was one social media guy who was always on Facebook and shouting he had served sentence for 3 months. And I remember I came across one of his addresses after he came out. He says, the police choose a certain group to arrest or to criminalize when they do certain offenses, whereas others are let scot-free. That is not right. It's simply not right. And most of these, we don't need to sit here and name them. We saw this. It's in the public eye.
The records are there.
Why are we destroying our country? And why are we weakening the judicial system? Why must we choose who to arrest or who to criminalize and who to let, they have done a criminal offense. If it's criminal, let it be criminal. Let it be, let it be phrased out. This is what, comprises of hate speech, because gagging the social media, we need to see that majority of people who are running these podcasts are youths. This is just, of course, some politicians have started, but majority who are doing these things are youths, and that is why they get income. Some of them have been monetized, by the way, right? So it's really not the way to go. It's it's not progressive, I must say. It's not. That is not the route Zambia should take. What we need is, let us be clear on what we feel is not the right thing to do. Okay. When we define what is wrong, then we are making progress. When we start saying this, tomorrow Zambia is going to be looked upon as being dictator. Those are some of the things that amount to being called the dictator's, state, and we don't want that in Zambia. If they think this is not right, let them put it out to say this is becoming criminal, and once it has been passed, that's it. Okay. But to start controlling, I don't think it's going to work. No, Zambia can do better than that.
Okay. Now, as we begin to wind up, Charlotte, I know we are only remaining with minus 5 minutes. However, let's get into the issues of climate change. I am aware, my producers were just informing me when we were coming up with contents of this particular discussion, that you are actively involved in combating climate change right here in Zambia on the Copper Belt. And correct me if I'm wrong, but last week you had your team go out there to plant trees. Just bring us up to speed. We have one more item to discuss before we call it a day.
Yes, thank you very much on that one. Yes, Muzinga Lives Foundation has several initiatives in, mindset change. One of them is fighting climate change. And what we have done in the last week, past, which was Youth Week, we kickstarted our plant tree campaign to join in the rest of the country. We saw that the president had also passed it, that districts or at least provinces must do the same. So Muzinga Lives Foundation started actually first in Kaoma, where we did, and we have been working with the offices of the DC and the mayors, and some peers have also been involved in it. So we did tree plantings first in Kaoma and Lundazi and in Kitu as well. And just today, I was on radio in Kabwe. We are also working with the mayor's office where we are planting trees. And I would like to say that one of the listeners actually just donated 100 pieces of trees that would like to give to Muzenga, so they can give through Muzenga so we can also plant. Muzenga intends to plant 1,000 trees in the year 2024. So we are going in different provinces where we'll be planting trees. And of course, Muzenga is working around the country. So we have different projects that are coming up. And we hope that as we plant, we have also tried to, say the language in the people's language so that they're able to understand, because this climate change is very important. So we cannot go on saying climate change, but we have been working with some chiefs where we'll be having workshops in their areas, and we want to speak it in the language so that people understand and not think, that's why there's no rains. No, it's very important that people get to understand the language of what we are trying to do.
Okay, and finally, Charlotte, there's another development. Obviously, my producer is just from telling me here that there's an issue that you're working on. Is it build a house for Zangi Foster Orphanage Home? What is this all about?
So as Muzenga, thank you very much, Mr. Smatsa. So Muzenga is working with most childcare facilities around the country, and we have tried to work. So we started in December last year, where we fed about 7 orphanages in 7 different provinces. We fed them for Christmas. And moving forward, Muzenga wants to work with skills. So mindset change, we are looking at, giving these children some skills, so as they grow up, they are ready for society. So one of the challenges we found, this Zangi home is in the northwestern province in Manyinga, and it's being looked after by our sister Joyce, who has been looking after these children. So it's a family of 20 children, aged from 2 years to 20 years old. Unfortunately, they don't have a house. They need a house. So as Muzenga, instead of just us providing the skills that we need, we thought we should first start by building them a home. So we registered a GoFundMe campaign to raise about 900,000 kwacha to build them a house. So if anybody who is listening out there, the project, it's about us raising the money. We have had some companies that I contacted last week that have donated some pockets of cement. And we have an architect who has offered to draw the drawings for the house for free. So there are lots of people who are there to wanting to do this good for these people in Manyinga. So we are raising money. We just opened an account with Stanbic yesterday to where the Zambian people who are not able to donate through GoFundMe with a Visa card, but then they can actually pay through the Zambian account. So that is the project. We are appealing to every Zambian, no matter how small, 50 kwacha, please send it to Stanbic Bank, and you will be notified. On Facebook, we are updated every week, at least for the Zambian account. For the GoFundMe, you are able to see how much has been raised there.
Okay. Any last words before we let you go?
Let love live, Zambia. Let love lead. We need it. And let's handle our own internal matters. We can do this as Zambia. We are more than that. Okay. And we cannot all govern at the same time. So let's just support one another.
Okay, fantastic.
And thank you, of course, thank you for hosting us, Camnet TV. Thank you very much, Mr. Samata. Always nice to be connected with home. Thank you very, very much. And let's remember to plant a tree, Mr. Samata. So when you knock off, please plant all the weekend, plant a tree and share with Muzenga. We'll be watching you. Okay, we will definitely do that. Thank you so much, Charlotte, for obviously having this conversation with us. We do appreciate. Thank you so much. Thank you very much. Okay, so there you have it, viewers. That was Charlotte Nais, a governance civil rights activist based in Oslo, Norway, getting in touch with us and having this very important discussion on governance and civil rights. And thank you, the viewer, the major stakeholder in all this, for having chosen us amongst many and for having chosen Camnet TV. We do appreciate your association. Now, before we go, we would leave you with some of the forgotten stories that you might have forgotten
that took place on this particular day, 19th of March. It could be 2023, it could be 2022, it could be 2021, but they took place on this particular day. Now, in our emerging stories quickly, it is difficult to predict when load shedding will end. That is coming from ZESCO. Look out for this particular story in our news bulletin. Then also, asset recovery alone not enough. There must be record of criminal conviction. That is coming from Mr. Musa Mwenye, Council Musa Mwenye, the SEC board chairperson, the Anti-Corruption Commission board chairperson. And in the broadsheet, the Zambia Daily Mail, it runs with a headline, Parliament suspends Emmanuel J. Banda. Pali suspends JJ. Petauke Central MP banned 30 days for misconduct. Seems like drama has continued in the August House, the National Assembly. Now we'll leave you with those particular stories. I have been your host. Joe Smarter is my name, on behalf of the entire production crew, including my director, Mr. Isaac Chifita, who is upstairs doing his thing. Thank you very much, sir. We do appreciate you. Bye-bye. We'll see you tomorrow, same time, same place. Good afternoon.
This is Mahatma Gandhi in Mtendere, where garbage has accumulated so much, almost blocking some roads due to indiscriminate disposal by the residents. Despite the residents of Mtendere being contributors to the accumulation of waste outside Mahatma Gandhi School, they have expressed concern over the worsened situation. And some residents spoken to have accused the local authorities of not collecting garbage on time, hence the accumulation, while the local authorities in their defense have tossed the ball back to the residents.
Danda uleti nayo kuno kwatu mati ground ni mabini. Tavutika na mabini. Adheni chena ona in short cheti pempa kukulimu titandizeni. Tibwezele ni wakanso waziyo na mabini. Because it spends ozura so mayona yanganani so I road is a very kind time
ngafuna danda ola kopa ma beans aya yamashta pollute here bakujja magulisira paji sungafike kuno so kuje so ngapempera government wendi nwasebenzelepo ndafya school zifu nkonkala so.
Area Councillor Boniface Chibeka, in an interview with Camnet News, has disclosed that most residents in the said area do not subscribe to authorized solid waste companies, hence dumping waste in public places like Mahatma Gandhi School ground.
You can see this is the council library. This is a borehole which are it has water, but people cannot access it because of the garbage. And as you can see there, we have pupils, houses. So this garbage does not come from heaven, does not drop like rain, does not grow like mushroom. This garbage is coming from people's homes. All these houses you see here, majority of them, they are the ones who are dumping here. We also have people like unscrupulous people are getting garbage from somewhere else, they are bringing it here.
Mr. Chibeka has also expressed disappointment in some community-based enterprises in their delayed collection of waste, stating that the blame goes on both the CBEs and the residents.
So my appeal is to Lusaka City Council. I think they should do something to this new company, because when we had Lusaka City Council, it never used to take this long to clear the press or to enforce the law. But ever since there is a new company, Lusaka Integrated Solid Waste Management Company, things like have slowed very, very down, in fact, very down, maybe by a factor of, I would say, 1,000. That is how negative it has become. So if Lusaka City Council, let Lusaka City Council through public health come in and assist this new company, which is unable to do what it's supposed to do. Because
meanwhile, Kazimaya Market Chairperson Moses Mwanza in Mtendere has assured the residents that the garbage situation there too will be looked into, further urging the residents to avoid dumping waste at the market.
Ni storage ya market. So pamene maonera hapa ili open chifuka chakuti inazula bin. So chipupa chinagwa. So after chinagwa chipupa tufuna tuste create ma garbages ya mene yali hapa. Tuta create ma garbages, then after that tupange inango pakuti inkale storage mamene nzalili kudala. But challenge ya mene tuli nayo tulina manyumba ali behind the market. Aya manyumba ali behind the market aya babulota amabini ku market.
Beatrice Chabaya, Camnet News, Lusaka.